Evo Morales practice some slegt so fantuile ambitions de future. Eisauaretat emict so fatru te cracks. Nicolás Maduro is staggering and can only keep himself afloat thanks to his swinging military forces. Daniel Ortega, in Nicaragua, should repurpose his regime if he wants to avoid collapse in the near future. Only Cuba will stand with the Bolivian president. Morales is conscious that his strength relies upon his alliance with residual Chavism and Castroism, and that being exposed would mean a severe blow to his plans for eternal rule. Will support the fleets from La Paz to Havana connecting in Caracas. He vaulted himself to the Bolivian chairmanship on January 22 ND, 2006, and ever since then he has sworn not to move away. To that purpose, he followed the populist instructions guide. He changed the constitution, in 2009, and recasted a friendly superior justice body. Strictly friendly, of course. Tailor-made for him. However, for saying that his tenure at the Palacio Quemado would reach an end sooner rather than later, he asked again his accommodative legislature to reform Article 168 of the Bolivian Constitution, so that he would be allowed to rule for 9 years. The term of office of the President and the Vice President of the State is 5 years, and they can be re-elected only on a continuous basis. Read the original text. He did not stop there. He wanted 2 additional terms granted to he or she in office. Select so fund. He would be granted on. And they got the legislative amendment, which had to be subjected to referendum. It was February 21 St. 2016. For the first time, the Bolivian people will say no. Nobody in the country approved of Evo being perpetuated. But, once again, the vertimely, only friendly justice smiled on his president. On December 5 the Supreme Electoral Court of Bolivia, TSE, reinterpreted the political constitution of the state in its reformed Article 168, disregarding the will of the people, and gave Morales free rein to enter again the voting battlefield. In their ruling, the judges just fell short of wishing good luck to the man in office. I don't want to, but I cannot disappoint me people, said Evo 11 e had judicial authorization to a third re-election. Nobody could decipher if it was a cynical irony from the president. However, a month later the scene in La Paz had fully changed. Since Juan Guaidó was proclaimed president in charge of Venezuela and the United States had imposed sanctions on PDVSA and dozens of officials of the Maduro regime, alarm bells set off in Bolivia. It is plain to see that loyalty around Maduro is increasingly fragile, that the world has isolated the dictator, and that, adding to the social and economic collapse, last week an energy crisis left almost all the country in darkness. The permanence of Hugo Chávez sailing Miraflores might have just hours to live. Russian, Chinese and Cuban interferences would reach a limit. One is entered in the oil, which Russia disputes Beijing, and the Island will let go of Caracas where Moscow to order it. Post-Soviet leftovers. More so in the last hours, since a Russian bank, the Profinance Mosnar Bank, has been similarly hit by the Treasury Department for trying to circumvent the notices against the Maduro dictatorship. Could Washington DC impose corrective measures to Morales and his ministers? That question is increasingly posed, in a low voice, at the Palacio Quemado. Openskies Poliki during his tenure starting in 2006, Morales engaged in the construction of a network of fleets that connected La Paz and La Habana via Caracas, according to statements made by former military officers who were a part of the circuit. This was revealed by the Brazilian journalist Leonardo Coutinho in his book Hugo Chávez, The Spectre. In the chapter The Cocaine Airlift, Coutinho recounts the workings of the routes among the Latin American capital cities, where the oil drug was transported in diplomatic pouches. The Brazilian writer and researcher based in Washington DC starkly exemplified it. Referred to a guiding thread among the tragedy of Chapecoense, on November 28 th. 2016, the suspicious death of a General, Germán Valenzuela, hours after an imprudent act of bravery in front of Morales, at a rally with Condades, and the La Paz Caracas Habana Triangle. The Brazilian soccer team's misfortune began to unmask a dirty plot revealed by the owners of Lamia. The airline company was a Pro RJ-85 airplane crashed in Medellín, Colombia, leaving 71 fatal casualties. One of the business owners, Miguel Alejandro Quiroga Murakami, flew the aircraft. He died in the accident, but he had testified earlier about what he had seen. The other owner, Marco Antonio Rocha, was in Spain at the moment. Knowing that he would not receive assistance from the Bolivian government, he decided to go into exile, along with his family, to the United States. Rocha, a former major of the Bolivian Air Force, started to talk. It was the right assumption. He suspected that this was his only way out in order to avoid a possible extradition request. Those were moments when Morales sought to detach himself from the tragedy that left world soccer grief-stricken. Rocha offered his statement to the DEA in Florida and Washington DC. He said that during his service as a military pilot, he had been summoned to perform flights connecting La Paz, Caracas and Habana. That said flights were not open to ordinary passengers but only to Venezuelan, Bolivian, Cuban, and even Iranian officials to be transported. Such singular passengers traveled with peace of mind. With immunity. Their luggage was protected and would not be inspected by custom agents. The diplomatic pouch, according to Coutinho, flew mostly from Venezuela to Cuba. Each of the trips carried an estimated load of between 1,100 and 1,700 pounds. te transfer to and from the planet to the final destination was responsibility of the Chávez / Maduro and Castro military personnel. Prior to that spatial tour was covered by Venezuelan aircrafts. But an incident in 2007 forced them to reconsider the strategy. No one would suspect of a Bolivian military aircraft departing from a base near the capital of the country. Staff, transportation and logistics would be in charge of local authorities, but financing and orders would come from Venezuela. The mysterious route was traveled 91 times between 2009 and 2014, according to information provided by the Brazilian government. At the cargo ballast be in the same 1,100 pounds, a total of 50 tons would have been transported from Caracas to Havana in airplanes of Evo Morales Air Force. Before his death, former Bolivian senator exiled in Brazil Roger Pinto Molina said that his son-in-law, Murakami, had revealed that he had been able to verify that the Bolivian jets carried cocaine and that in exchange Cuba returned cargoes of weapons and ammunition for Venezuela. Rocha said the same to the DEA agents. He described this surge of liquids, drugs, money and weapons, expecting that more evidence could be gathered. Solitude can be such a lousy companion Morales as the intuition that is time mayo come. But he also knows that he can't momentarily get away from Maduro and Cuba and just be destitute, with no friends to turn to. And he is not the only one deeply committed to those adversaries with Venezuela. He implicated his own military men, many of them happy to oblige, by order of Chávez, first, and then Maduro. That is why in recent days he condemned the United States and its interventionist sanctions against Venezuela and its officials. He even risked saying that the massive blackout in the allied country was just but a cowardly terrorist attack. Evo offered no further evidence than his own imagination. Only the economy gives him a break. The numbers are strong, although a red light remains lit. International reserves fade day after day. Last year, according to official information provided by the Central Bank of Bolivia, net international reserves, NIR, reached $8,946. $3 millions, last day of 2018, a reduction of $1,314.4 millions compared to 31 December 20.173. In 2014, barely 4 years agosto, reserves had reached a historic high, $15,122 millions. Since then the hemorrhage has been constant and the monetary authorities have failed to contain it. How can Morales reverse the trend if he begins to isolate himself as a result of his solitude in the region? Could PDVSA Bolivia drag along a financial institution? with that iming, Morales plays domestic politics que opinan ella in what goes on in Venezuela. If a could, I would win the clock forward to election day. It would give in some reassurance. But the vote is not close. It will be held in October. In the meantime, e practices more office tricks. E depicts Carlos Mesa, the opposition candidate, former president and forced opponent, as a rival who could snatch his throne. Even a poll shows the arena trace for the votes. The pollsters should consider to what extent they are willing to risk their professional reputation. To show elaborate a more critical interpretation of those numbers know that they are about an alchemy to validate the fraudulent maneuver that Morales is making to perpetuate himself in office. A hold on to power that, efforts, might be slipping away, given this historical momentum. Twitter, @totipimorefronte H.I.S. Autor, in Spanish, Rusia y su mayor obsesión. El petróleo venezolano, los militares de Maduro, Cuba, y un camino que se bifurca.